Excited to be here. Excited to get the chance to meet Deepak a couple of weeks ago, I guess, and just get to know him and kind of learn from his background. I think as we talk about big data, I'm first going to ask him to kind of give a bit of background to himself. I think the journey that he's been on through large organizations, and I think the journey he's going to drive at NIAGARA, give us a lot to learn from and a lot of excitement. So I think Deepak first, maybe we'll start with a bit of introduction, give through your background, and we'll jump in.
Absolutely. So I recently joined NIAGARA. I used to lead data and analytics for Mars, and as of 2 weeks back, so quite new to NIAGARA as an organization. So I'll tell a dad joke to begin with. So when I left Mars, I was sending notes to my friends telling that I'm leaving Mars and going to LA for my new job with NIAGARA. So a buddy of mine sent me a text which said, "Welcome back to Earth." And it took me a while to get what he was trying to tell. So back in Earth, back to NIAGARA Waters is it's one of the world's largest bottled water manufacturer. Operates in 20 plus countries. A family-led business as well, quite similar to Mars. Again, I won't be able to tell much about NIAGARA because I am also going through the onboarding program there. Prior to NIAGARA, I was leading data analytics and AI for Mars snacking, which includes brands like M&M, Snickers. Recently, this is the team which is leading the acquisition of Kellanova, which is in progress. And I started my career with one of the most well-known brands in the world, Coca-Cola company. I think I've learned most of my CPG understanding from Coke. I used to work for Coke Corporate, then North America, etc. So that's a little bit of a background about me.
And you didn't take my trivia question for the groups when I got the chance to meet Deepak, and I was learning a bit about NIAGARA. He's a little understated in family business. How many people would know that NIAGARA makes 50% of the bottled water globally, right? So you think about the size of the organization and what he can bring to that. It's really fascinating to learn more about that. I think to dive us in, I think the topic here really is about data and how we use it. And I think one of the things I really enjoyed actually reading a bit about yourself and some of these you published, but even in our conversations, you talked about this idea of values first mindset, right? And I think something I really resonated with kind of coming from my career, I've always been on the data side, working with large brands and retailers. But could you maybe take us through how you approach that? How do you kind of instill that values first, and what does that mean to you and the organizations you've worked with?
Absolutely. So let me start with this mindset. If you are in a data and analytics practice in any large organization, I think you would have heard of, many CDOs or CDAOs starts with building, hey, let's build a data first mindset. And matter of fact, I think one of the biggest challenge in doing that is that if a data first mindset, probably a decade back or so, people started building data warehouses. Almost 10 years back, we started building data lakes. And these days, with the partnership with, we have lake houses, right? So now, organizations would invest millions of dollars in building a huge data foundation to generate some insights, and after generating some of the insights, they would take some action, and it will generate a very small value. So you would essentially see articles telling that why CDOs are in an organization for 2 to 3 years, because that's when the CFO generally realizes that I think I've spent millions of dollars, not much of an incremental value. Now, I think during my stint at Coca-Cola, I think this is where our chief digital officer, who used to run data analytics, he kind of was a huge proponent of let's have a business problem first or a value first mindset. So what does that mean? So when you start your journey, you should prioritize the key business problem that your organization is trying to solve. Once that clarity is there, then you can figure out what are the actions that can be taken, and to take those actions, what is the insight that you need, and to generate those insights, what is the data that you need to have. So moving from a data first mindset to a business problem first mindset is very important. Matter of fact, the rally call for my team at Coke and at Mars was like, we are a business problem first team and a data second team. And we also told it's an AI second team as well, because we want data and AI to be an enabler to solve the business problems, not vice versa. So that has helped in driving a large amount of value creation, a profitable growth, leveraging data and AI. So that is the mindset that I would encourage everybody to have a close look if you're running a large data analytics organization.
Yeah, I love the corollary, especially the data warehouse, data lake, now lakehouse. We led many projects with clients to go through that, and we don't get to that next stage of where the execution is. You also talked about building on this idea of values first, and building on this idea of outcomes that I want to drive. You talked about, in the new role, bringing a lot of these functions together. So the other thing we see is you start to leverage more data, more analytics and insights. It actually forces collaboration within the organization, right? I can no longer independently make a sales decision over here without understanding the impacts on marketing. So how do you think about change management? How do you think about bringing both executives but also the downstream users along for the journey so that they're helping accelerate what you do?
Absolutely. So first, let me talk about the organizational silos, right? Like when you work for a large organization, I think probably when you are an organization selling more than $1 billion in any brand, what generally happens is that we are building a large organizational silos. And I generally use this example within any organization I work for. So this is like 4 blind people explaining an elephant. So somebody touching the trunk of an elephant and calling it something, somebody touching the leg and calling it something else, somebody touching the tail and calling it something else. It goes on and on. This is exactly how the elephant in the room is our consumer. The sales explains the consumer a certain way, the marketing function explains the same consumer a different way. The supply chain, the manufacturing, everybody explains the same consumer in a different way. And that needs to change. And we need to have that big picture. And that big picture mindset is going to be extremely important to build the right kind of data analytics and AI capabilities. So you need to have that single source of truth. Now, so that is going to be the first aspect that I would say. Large organization, I think they have silos, and I think that breaking of the silos is one of the important shift as a leader or a transformational agent that you have to do. Now, as a data analytics and AI leader, I mean, you have to win the hearts and minds of the organization to drive strategic changes. Large organizations, sometimes they end up spending a lot of time and dollars on taking some decisions, which my team used to have this funny saying that hey, we align for 6 months to do 6 weeks of work, right? So large organizations have this problem, right? Sometimes that can be a problem in large organizations. So how can you build that agile mindset? And more importantly, as a practitioner, I'm sure that there are not many AI or data sciences people here. To drive the transformation, I think for every $1 that you are investing in building a tool, if you can invest additional $1 in driving the cultural change, that is going to be really important. Now, how do we invest that $1? That is mainly one of the areas, training and upskilling. Now, thanks to generative AI, I think probably in the last 2.5 years, I think I've talked to the senior most leaders or the board members of the company. Generally, when you start as a data scientist, people has an assumption that you sit in the basement and write the code, and that has completely changed. And I think, so our first, since the advent of generative AI, at Khan, our chief marketing officer was talking about generative AI and prompt engineering, and I almost had tears in my eyes because people were talking the language of data analytics practitioners since then. So training and upskilling, it starts from the top. When leaders start asking data-driven questions, associates will start giving data-driven answers. So you have to give that training and upskilling to the top leaders of the company. Then you need to train and upskill every associates of the company as well. You need to raise the floor and break the ceiling. So raising the floor will only happen if you can elevate the data analytics skill set. So those are some of my experiences.
Yeah, and I love the raising the ceiling, and maybe we'll take a little dive deeper there, because I think you highlighted it right. A lot of people, even still today, don't exactly understand all the different elements that actually go into data science. And as you run that in the organization as well as business intelligence, and you think about change management, how do you balance your role, both as being an evangelizing with leadership about what you can do and what can be done, but then also playing that intermediary between those teams and leadership as to what actually can be done and how we drive outcomes?
Very good. So I think I generally look at 5 key themes when it comes to transforming an organization. Right. One, we need to have a strong aligned strategy between all the functions. I mean, at Mars we used to call it one demand strategy. I mean, Coke used to call it Coke One strategy actually. So I mean, they have a team also called that time. I don't know if it is still there. It's called Coke One North America. So I think having that one enterprise strategy is very important. So generally, it's not because of lack of strategy why analytics is not coming to the forefront. It's because there will be 6 different analytics strategy at a functional level, not at an enterprise level. So you need to have one strategy. The second strategy, and I think I'll not talk that much about vision, but I think strategy and vision. In this case, let me combine it together. Then the next aspect is the people. Now, see, I think the digital talent is a next gen talent. They operate quite differently. You have to cater to the needs of digital talent slightly different to any other different kind of talent. Now, so what does that mean? Are you willing? So if your organization have a 4-day or a 5-day work from office policy, are you willing to give an exception to the data scientist who is going to support or the data analytics talent in general? Now you will see that there are a lot of companies are willing to take that risk and asking these teams to drive the outcome sitting in a beach, right? So that is the people is going to be very important. You will also see that you have to spend a lot of time training and upskilling your existing associates, not only the new kind of people. So people is another important aspect. Another thing is processes. Large organizations, sometimes we tend to have Jurassic processes in the digital age, right? So very old school processes, but it is not ready for the AI adoption. So strategy, vision, people, process, and another aspect is platforms or technology. Now, technology is an integral part of accelerating whatever we can do. So I think that is going to be really, really important. If you have the right technology, I think you will be able to make a lot of different changes. And so sometimes technology can be the biggest accelerator. And the last one is the cultural change management that I would say. So I always look at these factors when I'm going through a transformational journey. And individually for me as a person, I think I'm an engineer by trade. What I've seen is that when I started my career, I was a very IQ focused individual. Hey, I want to get the right answer. Here is the black and white solution. And I've moved from an IQ focused individual to a EQ focused individual actually. So I think you have to sit and you have to put yourself in the shoes of other leaders in different parts of the business who have been making your company successful. You have to win them over so that they can change. So I think that is going to be really, really important.
And I know that going a little deeper on process, in my time kind of working both with retailers and brands on data and AI strategy, one of the other things that we found in process was trying to help them understand where data quality fell down, and sometimes that wasn't a technical thing. It was upstream in the process, someone manually enters something, and I need to drive that change because the outcome we're trying to do. How do you balance that? I think you also talked about technology too, right? It plays a big part of your data strategy. So how do you balance both where I make investments in technology, but also where I can push the organization to make changes, maybe in processes that might impact what we're doing from a data standpoint?
Absolutely. So I think I have 2 contradicting perspectives on this, right? The first thing that I'll tell you, so during my stint at Coke, right, Coke as an organization as say publicly available information, say $15 billion in trade that is spent. Trade dollars. And trade dollars in Coke used to be managed by a system called CAS as an example. Now, so I still use CAS. I'm not telling anything against CAS at this point, just that Accenture owns that product. But I think when the trade ROIs were not going well, generally including the trade managers, the first reaction of them is like, hey, the CAS is not working, the technology is working. It is really easy to blame the system. I think that is something to.
Yeah.
So I think it is all about upskilling people, training and upskilling them, how to use them, integrating them into the right kind of processes. Very important. Now, and one contradicting perspective is there. Now the tech companies also need to work really, really hard to make the user centricity very, very good for all of these capabilities. I think, and we need to, when you are a practitioner of data analytics and AI, we have to see both angles, right? You have to push the team to get themselves upskill. At the same time, I think we have to build the tools in such a way that it is really, really user-centric. Then only people can use as well. So.
No, it's great. I love the examples. It ties back to the values mindset, right? Because a lot of these systems, maybe in the processes, are built off of manual entry. But if I can anchor it back to here's the outcome we're trying to drive and bring everybody along, right, and get in there. We can't talk about data, analytics, and all that without hitting on AI. You kind of hit it as well. Kind of built on the user experience side. So I think one of the historical challenges with data science and AI, hey, it's a black box. I don't understand it. What's all of it doing? How do I be responsible about it? How are you thinking about that as a leader in this space and addressing that? And what do you look for around AI technology, explainability, responsible use? How are you driving that? Maybe not yet in Niagara, but planning to.
Yeah. See, I think, some of you might have heard this quote, you can't spell retail without AI in it. So I think AI is going to be integral part of whatever we are going to do. I think organizations are already realizing it and putting some very big investments behind it. Now, I think responsible usage of AI should be non-negotiable in all of these organizations. That's going to be really important. Now, what does responsibility mean? For every organization, responsibility might be different. So, some of you were there for the performance marketing conversation from Imtiaz, right? So, we are talking about first-party data from our consumers. And as organization, we have to hold ourselves accountable to make sure that the privacy is taken. This data privacy is really, really important, right? Different organizations take different decisions based on the data privacy, but it is very closely connected to the principle of who you are as an organization. The responsible AI strategy is no different from your organization's fundamental principles. Now, so privacy is one important aspect. Another important aspect is transparency in the decision-making process because of the black box nature of it. So we can take some really bad decisions, amplifying the biases against a larger, based on the historical trends. If you are having AI take decision without transparency and explainability behind it. So, there are multiple aspects of responsible AI, but I think that is something we as organization need to think about. Now, the best way, in my opinion, to build a responsible AI strategy is to partner with large tech companies and NGOs. So tech company from the lens that I think if you work with the responsible AI team for a Microsoft or a Google or Amazon Web Services, they have inbuilt responsible AI strategy there. I don't know if I would partner with OpenAI yet there, but I think build your foundation partnering with tech companies. You can also partner very closely with NGOs like Responsible AI Institute. Diversity is a very important aspect of it. You can't have a team of data scientists who are not at all diverse and expect that the outcome of the models that they are going to write is going to be bias-free. So, you should definitely think about partnering with organizations like Girls Who Code or like women leaders in data and AI. These are organizations who focus on gender diversity quite a bit. In general, you will see that in the tech industry, the gender diversity is 20%. So I'm just giving you one example. So how can you push it towards from 20% to 50? Because that's the only way we are going to have a balanced AI outcome that you can drive for your organization.
The explainability, I love the idea of explainability too, and a great recommendation too of using the ecosystem. I think it's easy to kind of get insulated and not pay attention to all the resources out there and leverage these companies that are living and breathing this, right, to guide their strategy. But the explainability is a fun one too. Everybody says, I can't understand the black box. I can't tell you how many decisions I've seen made off of an Excel spreadsheet with about 15 hidden tabs that nobody knows how it was calculated either. You've obviously been at the forefront of this in some really large organizations, Code, Mars, now kind of moving into a new phase. What excites you the most? Next 6, 12 months, as you think about go-to-market sales, what are the 2 or 3 things that get you fired up about what you think you're going to change or drive?
Yeah, see, I think now as the industry is seeing a significant amount of investment now in infrastructure, right? Like when you are seeing NVIDIA GPUs are the most hottest thing in the market. So a lot of investment going for, say, the Microsoft Azure Cloud through OpenAI partnerships. So there is a lot of infrastructure investment. I think in the next probably 12 to 18 months or like there will be significantly more investment in application capabilities actually. Teams who can leverage the AI infrastructure and drive better outcomes for the business. I think there will be a significant more investment there. Now the leaders in if you talk to any large brands, they are building the infrastructure really well. They have some easy quick wins that they have already got based on Gen AI implementation. And I think there will be more questions on driving ROI on these investments, in the near future. So moving from an infrastructure mindset to more application. So if you are a large organization, your ability to create more use cases and value, I think it is going to get valued more. There will be more, because now if you put AI on top of any initiative, it is going to get approved by the board these days. So
it's extra budget.
Yeah. So, and that is going to change. I think there will be more accountability on the return on investment is what I think.
Yeah, I love the parallel. I grew up in the data world, spent 15 years at Nielsen, and I think it was always about, just more data. I think you're seeing that shift now. I have enough data, what's the value I'm going to get from what decisions are we making? Just a last question here. So just because I found this interesting, doing some reading on yourself, obviously post-pandemic, wrote a book about it. We'd love kind of your observations. What do we learn from it? What lessons were learned? What stays the same for us in the industry and for people post that?
Yeah, I think Peter is looking at me, so I'll give you a fun story, and I'll close the session actually. So this is how many of you have heard the story of Honduran Bridge? Any of you? Okay, now I'm going to humor you with the story. So in 1930s, the Central American country Honduras, they go through a lot of natural disasters, earthquake, hurricanes, and stuff like that. Yeah. So they collaborated with the U.S. government to build a bridge that connect between two of the vast majority of the lands. And the bridge is called the Choluteca Bridge. So they connect between these, and that bridge was built to last, right? It was built to withstand hurricanes, flooding, etc. Now that bridge became a tourist destination of sorts because there was a huge construction there. Years passed by, another hurricane hit the country. It's called Hurricane Mitch. Do you know what happened? Because of the hurricane, there was a lot of flooding and river changed its course. Now you have a bridge with no water under the bridge. Now this is a blog by one of the innovators that I read, and that is happening in our technology and AI infrastructure now. Traditionally, we were building our capabilities to last. Now we have to build capabilities to adapt. Now, what does that mean? So during COVID, if you are in a data analytics and AI organization, if you have built capabilities just to last without adaptability, most of our organizations, e-commerce business, quadrupled. The growth that we were expecting in 3 years happened in probably 3 months, right, or a quarter. So, and we started seeing new channels coming up. So, and we started getting new data. And if there is one thing for organizations that I would say, I think things are going to change. I mean, we started with GPT 3, 3.5, 4. Now the 5 is going to come. Like Google has Gemini 1.5. The next version is going. Tech is going to move really, really fast. So build your infrastructure and the mindset to adapt than building to last. So I think that is my big learning, and I think that is the learning that I'll continue to implement in wherever I go.
No, I love it. It's a great way to end. Lead with value and make sure you're building to adapt. I think those are two really good things. I'll be one of many to say congrats on the new role. Wish you the best of luck. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much.